But anyway, we are here to learn about the Wood Island Life Saving Station. I'm so excited. Sam Reed has been president of the Wood Island Life Saving Station since its founding in 2011, so 11 years. His background is in public service as he had worked for 3 governors and President George W. Bush. That's pretty amazing. In the past, he's successfully tackled other challenging historic preservation projects, such as the $80 million Masonic Temple restoration in Providence, Rhode Island. He lives in Kittery Point, is married with 2 adult children, a dog named Dennis, and 2 hives of honeybees.
2 hives of honeybees.
You didn't bring honey. He
I
loves wooden boats, and his favorite part of the Wood Island Restoration Project has been all of the people he's met and helped bring together. And recently he's been researching the life-saving stations of New Hampshire's coast, including Rye, Hampton, and Wallace Sands. He looks forward to describing the challenges of Wood Island's restoration and explaining the work of the forerunner of the U.S. Coast Guard in our area, the U.S. Life Saving Service. So can we give a round of applause?
What a lovely introduction. And I think we can just take the lights if you're there. Great to be here. And I see friends from Kittery have come, and I've come down from Kittery. You know, to travel all the way to Rye from Kittery, I mean, you know, you have to pack a lunch, you have to plan where you're going to spend the night. I mean, you know, it's a pretty big commitment, so thanks for doing that. This is super. I'm going to tell you some great stuff. We're going to have a lot of fun. If there are questions, it's a little hard to see, but, you know, feel free to interrupt me. That's just fine. And we'll obviously do questions at the end as well. Here we go. A little life-saving stuff in New Hampshire, too. There is a little teeny building looking a little forlorn, but it's not. Ooh, that's looking pretty good. So I'm Sam, I'm the board president, and I love historic preservation. I love driving down Washington Street here, these beautiful buildings, and I was just jokingly saying it reminds me of the book, Big House, Little House, Back House, Barn, whereupon the author of that book is coming to the Rye Historical Society at the end of July. And if you don't know about that, that's wonderful, and you should come hear that speaker. But you all have a treasure trove of very special buildings right here on Washington Street. Love wooden boats, we'll talk about that. There's also a national organization, the U.S. Life Saving Service Heritage Association, and I'm on that board as well. So thanks so much for having me. So I'm going to tell you about our area. I'm going to talk about the restoration for sure. We're going to turn this thing into a maritime museum. It's always good to remind people what we're trying to do here. And the big message, if you only remember one thing from my remarks tonight, brave men rowing out to save others. That's really the bottom line. There is a bunch of brave men rowing out to save others. So you can see a ship in the background, horrendous weather. This was taken in October. So the current Coast Guard, and I know that there's some men here in the back from Rye Fire Department. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service. These are cousins, the firefighters in Rye and the Coast Guardsmen in Portsmouth. These are men that are out there doing this incredibly brave thing as if it's no big deal, but it's a very big deal. So yeah, I don't know. It's the same thing. They're still doing it. So where we are, what are we doing? Maine, New Hampshire, Piscataqua River. Over time, there have been 3. I'm so sorry. There have been 3 different stations in the Piscataqua, and they all have been called Station Portsmouth Harbor, which I think is kind of neat. When they were in place. First was Jerry's Point. Second is the one we're going to talk about, Wood Island, and the third one is still there. It is we call it Fort Point, Fort Constitution in Newcastle. So let's get our pointer going. Ooh, it works. Jerry's Point, basically the entrance of Little Harbor. You know where Wentworth by the Sea is, right there. We're right down here somewhere. Wood Island is right there, and Portsmouth is there. So boom, 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 all 3 of them right there. There's Jerry's Point, cool building. I'm going to tell you about architecture a little bit. Really neat building. Look at these guys. I mean, they are fantastic. Look at these guys. And there they are. They're out for their patrol, and there is Wentworth by the Sea right there. So that's pretty fun. And, you know, I'm sure there are people here who enjoy the postcards, the historic postcards, so that's good fun stuff too. This is, believe it or not, the first photo ever taken of Wood Island, which we still have. There are very few historic photos of Wood Island. if anybody, and I'll make this pitch in a minute, but if anybody knows anything about Wood Island that you don't see here, please tell me, because we really only have sort of 4 or 5 historic pictures. This is the oldest one we have, and it's that ramp is going to come into this conversation in a minute. Here we have the current station. So there was a Revolutionary fort right there, but that's the station, and this is a boathouse. Pretty crazy. I don't know what you call this architecture, but I think it's sort of, you know, third world airport control tower. I'm not sure, but that's pretty neat. So there are only 9 life-saving stations, and when I say that, I mean pre-1915. So the U.S. Life-Saving Service was founded in 1878, and it ran to 1915 when the U.S. Coast Guard was founded. So it's a very particular piece of time. Before 1878, there were a few things going on. In fact, there were things happening here in Rye that I'm going to talk about, but it was not super organized on a national level in a coordinated way. So pre-1915, there are only 9 of them left in Maine. There were 12. There are loads of lighthouses. I mean lighthouses, dime a dozen. I mean, everyone has lighthouses. Of the 9, 3 are on the National Register. Wood Island will be the 4th. And only one of them is open to the public. It's a bed and breakfast, which doesn't really count. Hello, Mr. Jackson. How are you, sir? Pleasure to have you. None of these buildings are historically restored as museums. There are only about 12 life-saving stations that are historically restored and open to the public in the country. So what we're doing at Wood Island is pretty special. In New Hampshire, there were 5. There are only 1 remains, and it's right here in Rye. I'll show you pictures of it. And I will put in a pitch. If anybody can get me invited, I'd greatly appreciate that. But anyway, there were only 5. There's only 1 left. None are open to the public. None are historically restored. So New Hampshire is a good example of what happens when you don't take care of these buildings. Early postcard of Wood Island, great stuff. It is a Duluth type, and that is to say a particular architectural type that started in Duluth, Minnesota. And I'm going to tell you more about that. Opened in 1908. Assisted mariners, as we discussed, not a lighthouse. This is the key point. Many times people get that confused, but this is a life-saving station. This is a lighthouse. And I'm sure you all know, but that's Whaleback Light. And there's a really cool thing about to happen. I was just telling Mr. Jackson about it, that Whaleback Light's light is about to change. And this is not yet in the papers, et cetera. Expect an article shortly. But that it's an 1872 building. Until 2009, it had a rotating search beacon. And in 2009, it was changed out for a solar-powered LED. So really neutered. How about that? That's a very, very sad thing when a National Register building, a lighthouse, loses its light. It's progress. There's nothing we can do about it. Oh my goodness, et cetera, et cetera. Well, anyway, in good communication with the Coast Guard through the Wood Island project, we expressed some concern about this because we knew that there's now a solar-powered search beacon, and it is going in next week. So I'm really, really excited about that. So you all are the first to know about that. Yeah, it's really going to be cool. So here we go. Yeah, New Hampshire's claim to fame, more life-saving stations per mile. I mean, that's a good thing. This is a terrible slide because you already know it, but anyway, Wallace Sands, Rye Beach, Hampton, you know the idea. I've shown you that. Jerry's Point was the first up there. And this is a fantastic book. If this subject interests you, quick search on Amazon, gotta buy this book. It's really super, and I'm now going to steal liberally from it. This is a great picture because it has Wallace Sands up on top, Wallace Sands, Rye Beach, and Hampton Beach. So the 3 sort of big stations of New Hampshire right there on one page. And that's pretty cool. If you notice, this one and this one, as well as Jerry's Point, are all the same design. They're called a Bibb number 2. And there was a man, Mr. Bibb was an architect for the U.S. Life-Saving Service. He made all of these. They're all over the place. The ones with the asterisks are still existing. And we talked about Hull or Port Alec. That is right there. So most of them are gone. There were 22 ever built. Most of them are gone. Obviously, the ones in New Hampshire are gone as well. In the case of Hampton Beach, it was a Jersey pattern. Almost all of them were in New Jersey. But Hampton's gone. There are only 1, 2, 3 of that type of architecture left in the country. And I'm sorry to geek out, I just love this stuff, though. This is so cool. So Duluth type, there were 28 of them, we're down to 12. Really only one is historically restored. Wood Island will be the second. And the one that's restored historically is in Cape Cod at Provincetown, and it's called Old Harbor, and it's fantastic, you gotta go see it. But this will give you an idea. By coincidence, Wood Island was the last of the Duluth types ever built. Also a great book, and I'm sure you all know this one too, but is it William Varrell? I think that's right. And so this also, good stuff is to be found here. That picture on the cover is about to become interesting. There it is. You see this man, Ben Ricker, which we think is that man. He's going to come up in this story. So really kind of cool. Wallace Sands, there you go. We all know it's a bib number 2, right? There it is. Here's some of the men from Wallace Sands. I assume a lot of things, but I assume the members of the Rye Historical Society have seen many images of these life-saving stations, whereas I think 1 or 2 of these images you may not have seen. So this one I bet you haven't seen, and that one I bet you haven't seen. That's the bib number 2. Lovely, Wallace Sands. And this is the only reason to restore Wood Island Life Saving Station, so we can have cool sweaters. I mean, holy smoke, Rye Beach Life Saving Service. I mean, isn't that the coolest thing? I mean, look at the neck thing. That's fantastic. And here we have the gentlemen from Rye are launching. There is their bib number 2 in the background. It's also referred to as, help me here, Genis Beach.
Yes.
So Genis Beach confuses me very, very much, but I'm going to call this Rye Beach because it's really confusing. This is the second life-saving station in Rye, but I'm going to call it Rye Beach just to keep it simple. There they are, fantastic. Look at the waiters, the whole thing is fantastic. I don't even know what this contraption is to get the boat down in the water. That's truly amazing. I mentioned Mr. Ricker from the Rye picture. Sorry, from the Wallace Sands picture. Here's Mr. Ricker in the Rye picture. So keep that in mind. He's going to keep coming up. Here we have the gang from Rye. Fantastic image. And this is the building that still exists. If you don't know, it's right down the street someplace. And it was, I'm going to call this Genis Beach, just to keep the two from confusing everybody. It's built in 1874, and it is now, as I understand it, a guest house. And again, anybody who can work out an invitation for me to go would be my friend. So just so we're clear. But it is crazy special building because its architectural type, oh yeah, this is just funny games. This is the first transatlantic cable, I'm sure you all know, coming in across the Atlantic to Rye. And you can see the building in the background there, and there, and there, so that's pretty cool. The building is an 1874 type. So we've talked about bib number 2s, Jersey patterns, Duluth types. This is an 1874 type. Surprise, surprise. First built in 1874, which is your building. So the building in Rye is crazy special and historic because it's before the U.S. Life Saving Service even got going, and it's one of the very first of this super, super old type of architecture. And sadly, most of them are gone. So it's really, really cool that it's still here. This is a heartbreaker. This is exactly why we worked and continue to work to restore Wood Island. This is down in Hampton, and it says, former site of a U.S. Coast Guard station. Look, it's like a tombstone. I mean, this is the saddest thing I've ever seen. And a guy from the Coast Guard said this to me proudly. I'm like, buddy, that is a loss. That is not. So I showed you the Jersey pattern station. That's what this is referring to. So anyway, here it is. Jersey pattern, gorgeous. It's now a field, I guess. I don't know. I throw this up. January 1896, there was a wreck right here. That was to say, in Hampton, I should say, in Hampton Beach, there was a wreck. And there was no life-saving station. And so the men from Rye, in a blizzard, drove a team of horses and a carriage with a boat on it down to help the rescue. It took them 2 hours. So it was pretty crystal clear that Hampton needed to be half as cool as Rye and build a life-saving station. So this wreck is why that happened. There was Hampton Beach's station, absolutely gorgeous. We all know it's a Jersey pattern, absolutely beautiful. Again, postcards, fantastic. You're going to want to note that funny little thing. We'll get there in a minute. Here they are in their boat, fantastic. When people are rowing seated next to each other, it's called en banc, just that's your vocabulary word of the night, which I love. So here you go. The lovely old 1874 type is still existing. Jerry's Point, gone in 41. Wallace Sands, gone in 46. If somebody here can help me learn when the Rye Beach station was demolished, I cannot figure that out, so I greatly appreciate that. And Hampton Beach was taken out in 75. So there you go. There's your lineup in New Hampshire. Let's go back to the fun part. This is good stuff. This is an artist rendering created in about maybe 2010. So a long time ago. And it was vision, vision, vision. You had to have some imagination to believe this was going to happen. That is a fully restored life-saving station on a fully restored marine railway. That is Gundalow. Anybody know what Gundalow is? Show of hands, Gundalow. Okay, I figured you would. So that's Gundalow visiting, bringing tourist traffic to a maritime museum. This is Heritage, which is another tourist boat that is right there in Portsmouth. So there's your vision. You got a flagpole, you got the flag, you got the shed. Holy smoke. Okay. That's why it took a lot of imagination. So it was really, really horrible. And no windows, no doors. There's a huge problem with the roof. This is no joke at all. This is the seawall falling apart. That is, 20-foot tall poison ivy. It's bad. It's bad. And then you've got a happy picture. This, I think, is a happy picture. 4th of July, 2016, we are taking the thing apart, putting it back together. 2017, 4th of July, no windows and doors, but it's looking pretty good. 2018, big smile. That's really cool. Here is one of our very few historic photos. And I bring to your attention the incredibly amazing Marine Railway at Wood Island. Wood Island is the only life-saving station remaining in the US that has a marine railway connecting to the station. And that, believe me, that sentence took a long time to figure out. We did a lot of research to get to that. So, wow, how cool would it be if we could restore the building and the marine railway? That would be really cool. And this is what we're talking about. One of these rescue boats going down this thing on a special cradle with train wheels. I mean, how much fun is that with actual train tracks? How much fun? Boys and their toys clearly run amok here. So this was in Gloucester. Sad to say that one's long demolished too. Only photo I've ever seen of a marine railway with a rescue boat on it. This is one of our other very few historic pictures. If you'd like to know what I'm asking Santa Claus for Christmas, it's that right there. That is a 36-foot Jonesport lobster boat that has become a rescue boat. And it's sitting at the mooring. So when we got around to putting a mooring at Wood Island, we put it in the same place. I mean, it's an obvious thing. This little boat, whoopsie, oh please, this little boat right there, we'll come back into the story in a minute too. That little guy right there, that's going to be part of the story too. So in essence, Wood Island was 1908 to 1941. Then in World War II, the US Navy came in and they took out the Coast Guard. And if there's a whole other lecture for another night on the history of the defense of the Piscataqua River and World War II. And it was unbelievable. I will skip over that, but believe me, it was unbelievable. The station was deactivated soon after World War II, and it was unused, which is very, very interesting, because most all these historic buildings, something happens to them. So somebody puts linoleum in the kitchen in 1974, and somebody has the bright idea to change the dormers, and over time they change. This building did not. This building was closed in 1948, and it just sat there. So that's very unique. Kittery ended up owning it in 1973, and they just really didn't take care of it, is the bottom line. Here we have a very sad picture with a sad building, sad seawalls, sad marine railway, everything's sad. And this is also pretty sad. But that's not sad. And this is sad. That is toxic bird guano. I'm talking poopies right here. I'm in a church. I said poopies. I'm sorry. But that's really, really, really evil stuff. And the building was filled with asbestos, top to bottom, but the bird guano was actually more dangerous. That's better. That's not good. That's better. That's really not good. That's better. The basement, Dante's Inferno. I'm telling you. I mean, really bad. That is an asbestos pipe, letting loose its asbestos, really scary stuff. That's better. This is a beautiful space. This is the room that the Marine Railway comes into in the building. So it's the boat room. And it was a disaster. There are things growing in the floor. It's a whole lot nicer now. So we are a little charity, and I'm going to quickly tell the story of how this all came to pass. In 2009, Kittery started to plan to demolish the historic building. So that's a sad statement right there. A group of us, started getting together and say, I'm sorry, can I ask a couple follow-up questions before you demolish this historic building? Can we just have a talk? And this goes on for a while. We asked them to ask for help. So please put out a formal request for proposals. Please ask for help. And let's see if we can figure out a way to help you. And so, believe it or not, they didn't really want to hear about that. We had to have all kinds of unpleasantness, protests. Notice the Coast Guard sweatshirt. Tough times, believe me, really not fun. We ended up kind of coming to a compromise, 2013. And that was, well, you can't finish the restoration, you can't use the building, but you can start. And call off your lawyers, because we had some really good lawyers. Call off your lawyers. And you can start, but we're not really going to let you finish, and we're not going to let you use it. Like, great. That sounds like a great plan. Oh, and by the way, town, we'll fill out all the paperwork, but you need to apply for EPA cleanup money. They say, great. So we did all of that, and we came back in 2016 and said, we've raised a lot of money, we figured out all the permits, and by the way, we're not doing this unless we have an agreement to use the building and fully restore it to the public. And that was a pretty convincing argument, and we got it through just barely. But that's what we did. And so we have a 40-year agreement with Kittery to operate a maritime museum. That's the bottom line. The charity does not own the island, the charity does not own the building, and it's worked out really, really well. So here we go. We're back to 2016, putting on all kinds of cool stuff, new roof, look at that. 2017, we started working on the exterior. Well, you got to do the windows. The windows are an incredible story. The shingles themselves are a crazy story. We made them, handmade them with the same equipment that would have made them in 1908, just crazy stuff. There are people, there are men in this picture, but you cannot see them because they're in camouflage. No, I'm only kidding. This is the Maine Army National Guard. And there's no chance, no way, no how, that this project would have happened without the partnership with the Maine Army National Guard. And they are absolutely outstanding, outstanding folks. So you see that we've restored the building. That's great, and there's nothing yet in the inside, but the building stays. Well, what about the seawalls? What about the Marine Railway? What about a pier? How are you going to operate this thing? So there's a lot more to do. You see the front yard is kind of missing? That's a problem right there. That is a definite problem. You see the seawall, which kind of used to be there? That's not there anymore. So that's a problem. So this is definitely beyond a small nonprofit's abilities. So what we're going to do is we're going to call our friends at the Maine Army National Guard and get them to come help as their annual training for free. So bring in the National Guard, literally. This north seawall, oh my heavens, 260 feet long, ridiculous. 21 concrete trucks of mud just to get the base to put precast concrete blocks, 257, I've forgotten that. Each block was 3,200 pounds. So I mean, this is a very significant wall and little shed and this and that. So National Guard sent 2 platoons of 60 men and women, 120 soldiers, 30 straight days, 7 days a week, not goofing around. As I told Tom, a bunch of those nights I think they did at one point 4 days straight, 24 hours. So they are not fooling around. They lived in tents nearby. They had all their toys out. Oh my God, we're talking excavators, trucks, the communications, incredible. So it was a military exercise. And it was to the benefit of us, for sure. So this photo, literally, I sometimes wake up at night in cold sweats with this photo. So this is, we have no idea if this is going to work, but we have to take out the seawall to start. You see my meaning? So we're going to bring concrete trucks, we're going to bring the Army and all, but we don't know if a concrete truck can get up the beach. So, it's supposed to. We'll see. So here we go, big forms just to pour the concrete. lots of soldiers. They're the precast blocks. And pretty soon you got yourself a North Sea wall. And this is how we did it, this crazy, crazy thing. It's called the Lionel Plant. It comes out of Peaks Island, just up in Casco Bay. It was custom designed by the captain, so he really knows how to operate it. And it's the same height as a highway bridge, so these trucks and all can get underneath it. It can take 2 concrete trucks at once. And talk about strange things that you didn't know you'd ever learn. If you have 2 concrete trucks at your barge at the same time, the barrels need to spin in different directions. Do you see my meaning? So, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay. You got a couple porta potties, army trucks. So those army trucks are how we got all the blocks there. And so this is training. So you have young men and women driving these trucks through the streets of Kittery, Maine, with, God only knows, they don't, oh, by the way, army trucks don't have any weight restrictions. Ooh, contemplate that. So fill that thing up, but they're putting in a driver who does not know how to drive the truck. So anyway, quite interesting exercise. Here we have a couple concrete trucks doing their thing, it's just coming off the beach. I mean, it's crazy. And the really kooky part about this, the only way this was going to work, if you think about a fully loaded concrete truck, is something like 76,000 pounds. And it would destroy any normal boat ramp. And frankly, there are not many around. So there's one in Little Harbor that's no good. There's one in Kittery that's no good. There's one in Elliott that's no good. The one that would work is at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. So here we go. What we got to do is pick up the phone and make friends with the Navy to allow the Army to come onto their base. This is going to take some coordination. But it all worked out. And the Navy was thrilled, and there's some funny stories about how that happened. But those are happy sergeants. They've just built that wall in 30 days. And you know it's good when they bring out their battle flag. Yeah, that's good. And I did not have to prompt them. I took this picture. They were like, take a damn good picture. I mean, you don't see this every day. Anybody have any idea why there's a hunk of wood in the middle of this big wall? Any guesses? No, railway. Well done. Well done. Well done. So there it is. That's why. And this is giving you some idea of what we're talking about. I mean, that's madness. That's what was there. That's when we showed up. Yeah, that's not good. This is fairly terrifying. We're not sure if we can finish this. We've started. It got hairy. It was a tough project. And halfway through it, the sergeant who was running it said, "Mr. Reed, we will not fail our mission." I'm like, whoo, I'd love to hear that. So anyway, they did not. They came back in 2019, very, very similar. The south wall is enormous. That's Sam with his friends. There's the south wall. Here we go. We're going to do it all over again. Some genius, not me, at the National Guard, is like, well, we built the north wall in 30 days. Let's build the south wall in 21 days. I'm like, that is a terrible idea. And they just barely got it done. This crazy pole was put in place by the National Guard. They built this enormous base. You can't see it, it's underground, but it's enormous. And this photo is absolutely nuts. There is 1, 2, 3 concrete trucks. There's the barge. There's some sort of excavator. There's a man lift. The flagpole just went up 10 minutes ago. I mean, it's just crazy. But what's nice about it is you have a new north wall and a new south wall. So that is pretty cool. The reason for that huge pole is this thing. And does anybody understand what this is? Anybody? This is it's a cannon, obviously, but it's a Lyle gun. And Mr. Lyle invented a way to help people when they're stranded on a ship. And the idea is, if you get to a ship and it's just not going to happen, I mean, it's too rough, it's too horrible, you show up in your rescue boat, you will be drowned. That's just not going to work, and you can't get from shore. So what you do is you set up over here your little cannon, and you shoot a projectile tied to line into the rigging of the ship, and the folks on the ship tie off and slide to safety like a zip line. So that is a person. Yikes. So you got to have your cannon to do all this. And here's another one coming off. And there's another one coming off. And what people did at these life-saving stations, well, first of all, they weren't doing a whole lot. I mean, there were terrible tragedies and lots of excitement every once in a while. not unlike firefighting, which we hope you guys aren't busy at all. So you got to practice all this. You can't just make it up on the fly. You need to practice all your emergency training. So they would build small poles like that. That's down in North Carolina. And they would shoot their cannon at their small pole, let the line get hung up in sort of football pole, what am I trying to say, goalpost arms, and then practice sliding on. Here is Hampton Beach. There they are at Hampton Beach. Remember I mentioned this funny little thing? That's their pole that they shot their cannon at. This one, we thank the Rye Historical Society for letting me steal this picture. There's the cannon, big plume of smoke. There's their pole. So it was right here. They were doing this literally right here. Well, they did it at Wood Island as well. So we built this pole. Now, this is a little bit ridiculous. It's bigger than what was at Wood Island because we wanted to also have the function of a flagpole. So we'll shoot cannonry at this thing with a projectile, and you can see there's a ladder on the back, there's a crow's nest up here. I'm here to tell you there are 2 or 3 places in the country that still do this, and no surprise, there's a whole procedure for how to do it. And as soon as we built this thing, got all these fun emails from these folks, like so excited about it. Oh my goodness! And I said, great, bring your cannon. We don't have one yet. Bring your cannon. We'll play. We've got the pole. So I mentioned, the brave men rowing out in boats to save others. Well, half the fun of this project, maybe more, is fooling around in boats. That's really what we're doing. And that boat is a very special boat. So this is called a Type SR pulling surf boat. And since my name is Sam Reed, I think Type SR is kind of perfect. But there are very few of these varieties. They're all quite similar. And believe it or not, there are people that have dedicated their lives to learning about early Coast Guard rescue craft. And so I've gotten to know sort of the leading guy. He wrote a book called American Coastal Rescue Craft. And so he helped us. He gave us these plans because we came upon this piece of machinery. This is a wonderful old boat. We did not know what it was, but we saw it, I'm not making this up, on Facebook. And so one of our board members sent it along and said, I don't know if you're interested, but it's not expensive. It's down in Connecticut. Maybe we should go take a look. It's called the Mervyn Roberts. And if you're having any trouble sleeping at all, I strongly recommend you watch the video on our webpage. And it is about how we found this boat and who Mervyn Roberts was and all the fun and games. It's called The Acquisition of the Mervyn Roberts. And it's just a special, very well done half-hour show. And we have folks donating all sorts of things to Wood Island, but we're super fortunate that we have a wonderful videographer who does all this stuff for free. So anyway, Mervyn Roberts. The cool part about the Mervyn Roberts is I mentioned the other friend who's the super expert. He said, yep, that's a Type SR. And hold on a second, go through some files. There was a Type SR at Wood Island. So normally you go the other way. Normally you say, okay, you do your research and then you say, great, we're looking for a Type SR. Oh, we found the boat first. And then we come to find out it is historically perfect for the building. So that's really neat, meaning it went down the Marine Railway the whole time. So there she was, sitting in a little yard, quietly, sadly, in Connecticut. Well, we sent it up to our friends, and you guys know Pan Am as an airline. Well, believe it or not, it's a railroad. And the railroad bought the name and the logo. And they're the freight railroad for northern New England. And their big operation is in Waterville, Maine. So we had nowhere to store this thing, so we shipped it to Waterville, because they're friends. And they said, we'd gladly help you, and they are continuing to help us. This nice man is restoring the Mervyn Roberts, and he is Nate Greeley in Portsmouth. He's at the Button Factory, and he's a true master. I mean, just an exceptional guy. But the t-shirt says the whole story. I mean, that's just fantastic. There's the Mervyn Roberts getting kind of taken apart, and what he did was, it's not a brand new boat, as in a replica. It's the real thing. But what he did was he took all the frames out and put all new frames in. And then he took all the planks off and attached new planks to the new frames. So you see, it goes from that to that. Whoa, this was a week or two ago. It goes from that to that. What's really slick is we just took delivery of a fully electric engine for this thing. And there's the idea of maritime electric power is very early, if you ever read Wooden Boat magazine, it's like every third article, but that nobody really understands how all this works. The batteries are different than the engine, are different than the charger. We had to figure all that out. But the upshot is, we have solar power at Wood Island. We will charge the batteries for this historic boat from solar power. We're totally off grid. So it's really, really, really special. It will have power. It will also be able to be rowed. So this is an 8-oared rowing boat. So we're going to row this historic boat. But if just 2 of us want to go out, we can turn on the electric engine. So that's really, really, literally does not exist. So that's really neat. I throw this up, not that I know anything about the Fisher's Island station, which I do not, but I bring to your attention this crazy contraption that it's sitting on. And that is a cradle for a marine railway. Believe it or not, we tracked down the original plans. Our super expert friend provided them from 1922, and we built that. So that nutty thing was built for us for free by Pan Am Railways. And the reason we sent the boat up to Waterville was they have massive equipment there. They maintain 100 locomotives, and if you ever want to have fun, go visit Waterville, Maine's facility. They have lifts capable of lifting massive pieces of locomotive engine. Well, obviously they can lift the Mervyn Roberts, and so they built this thing and made sure that it fit the boat. I reminded you of this. This is the purpose of this crazy thing. I reminded you this is the Marine Railway to Wood Island. On our webpage is a really cool interactive place where you can go and move in, out, up, down, left, right, and really see the whole model. And we actually tracked down the original plans for the Wood Island Marine Railway from 1907, which is a whole nother story. But the upshot is we found them. And so this is exactly what we're building. And there's the computer-generated image. So not only are we going to do the building, not only are we going to do the seawalls, we're going to do this marine railway and the pier. Because there was no pier there historically, but we need one for Gundalow, et cetera, to land. How do you build any of this stuff? That is a drill. That is a $3,000 drill. It's a diamond tip drill. And we drilled crazy, crazy heavy-duty structural steel pipe into the ledge. Those things, each hole took 2 days, so that gives you some idea. You can't see it, but there are a bunch of pipes there. And the bunch of pipes, we sleeved on top of that 12-inch structural steel pipe and filled it with concrete. And the really kooky part of that was we had this wonderful marine engineer who's got just a super love for life, lots of fun and games. And he's designed this whole thing, and it's going to be these big pipes on top of the little pipes, and we're going to fill it with concrete. It's all going to be great. Well, the problem is this excavator is not able to lift concrete to the top of the pipe. So he's like, oh, I know what we do. We just cut the whole thing in half. I'm like, what in God's name are you talking about? So what you're looking at is half the height of the pipe. And there's the full height. So we filled the bottom half with concrete and then welded the top. Yeah, crazy, crazy stuff. And connected them all with wood, beautiful timbers. That's the end. That's a person up there. I mean, it's massive. It's 19 feet above mean low water. And I'm sure there'll be somebody in the question and answer at the end to ask about rising sea levels. And it's an absolute serious thing. 6-inch rise in the last 100 years in the Piscataqua River. It's not stopping. So everything we've built is bigger, badder, and ready. So it's called resiliency. And it's very amusing because we get into some debates with some folks that say you are a moron to be restoring Wood Island Station. It's going to be underwater. And the answer is sure, eventually, probably, hopefully not in my lifetime. But this will literally be the last thing on your worry list when that happens. What's more, those seawalls are 2.5 feet taller than what was there. What's more, this thing is 6 feet higher than what has just been built to Kittery Town Dock. So we've built everything bigger and better and all that. Oh, look, some pipes for a marine railway. That's kind of cool. Very proud of that picture, lovely. This is about a year ago. We're starting to deck the thing. It took us 2 years to build the pier. Here it comes. You gotta have a float. Custom, gorgeous, amazing, crazy, huge, 48 by 10, 14,000 pounds, and I know this because, oh, that's ridiculous. That's an 80-foot long. This whole thing is handicapped accessible because we took a whole bunch of federal money, so that's no joke. I happen to know that the float is 14,000 pounds because this crane picked it up and put it in the river for us, and the crane has a scale. You know the Sarah Mildred Long Bridge, so the crane lives right there, and no surprise. We only had to give a couple lobsters to get that. So, one of our board members is the oldest lobsterman in Kittery, so whenever you need to get into a good negotiation, he always starts offering lobster. There's the float. There is the float turning into a boat. It's pretty cool. You can see Wood Island in the background. And here it comes. Let's put it all together. This was last July. Pretty cool. This is a before and after. Woo. So not only does the pier make it to the seawall, but it connects directly to the building for wheelchairs. That's going to be a little bathroom, little handicap bathroom. And the National Guard came back last summer. There were only 30, and they were only there for about 6 days. So you know you've really lost your way when you think that only having 30 soldiers is not enough. But anyway, they came, they were wonderful. They helped build a whole bunch of it. There's your friend Sam with some other friends. But look at this guy. What is he doing? Too fun. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's even better. And the reason that's better is because that's a marine railway. And that doesn't even look real to me. That's just amazing. Computer generated, real life. Here comes the marine railway. This is how we built it. Just getting these materials have been really, really challenging. Apparently there was a pandemic. I didn't read anything about it. But anyway, very, very cool. The train track itself, we want it to be historically correct. So that train track is from 1896. And that's cool, but the problem with that is you need the wheels to match it from 1896. And so our friends at Pan Am Railway were like, we got all this stuff, don't worry about it. What's more, they're funky little plates. See those little plates? Those we had to really scramble for because they need to match the rail. And they found them in central Maine at an abandoned siding that no one had talked to for years. They sent a crew of men up there, pulled all the rail out, took all the plates. Crazy stuff. So then, just because, you know, we've gotten this far, I know what we'll do. I've got a great idea. Let's build a special cradle, not the cradle that I told you about for the boat. Let's build another cradle with other wheels that are from 1896 so that we can put the float away for the winter. You see that crazy thing? Oh, that's the float on its special cradle, going up the hill and being put away for the winter. And it all worked. And the cradle for the boat and all, that's maybe total weight of under 5,000 pounds. This is total weight of coming up 15,000. So, you know, clearly the Marine Railway is going to be able to handle the boat. And here we go. I mean, we're going to be a maritime museum celebrating all these wonderful things. What's really cool about it is it's available for event rentals. So you'll be able to go stay there as well. So overnight stays and event rentals, as well as just what you assume will be visits of folks coming to see a museum. I think the Rye Historical Society should have a meeting. I think that's a great idea. We've started collecting artifacts, and this is where we get from, isn't it cool that we restored the building, to actually, you know, human connections and human stories. This is a really cool picture. It is from a collection of a man named Charles Hand, and okay, I'll ask you a silly question. What's wrong with this picture? What do you notice that's odd about this? Well, I'll give you a hint. There are no oars. So we all assume a boat has an engine, but that boat doesn't have an engine, does it? It's 1920. So engines were just coming into boats at that time. So that's one of the things that's really special here is these life-saving stations basically got pushed out of business because as soon as you figure out how to get engines in boats, well, geez, you get bigger engines and bigger boats. And pretty soon you don't need lots of little life-saving stations. You create this thing called the Coast Guard, and you have a totally different command and control structure. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's a very interesting picture because what it's showing you is they're about to go out of business. They figured out how to get an engine in a boat. That's, and you all know Fort Foster. That's Fort Foster in the background. But again, super rare. I've only shown you 4 or 5 pictures that we have from Kittery, so this is a good one. This is Mr. Hand, Charles Hand. He was the head of Wood Island for about 20 years, and he also served at some other stations, including Jerry's Point, and his family has provided an incredible amount of information, photos, documents, etc., which will definitely be a big part of our museum. Just love that. And this is back to Ben Ricker. I mentioned Ben Ricker earlier, George Ben Ricker. Wallace Sands, Jerry Point, Rye Beach, and Wood Island. Oh my goodness, that's incredible. So same guy, going to serve at all these places. Well, just now, So if you don't know, New Hampshire Public Television did a lovely piece on Wood Island, half-hour show, called Windows to the Wild, Willem Lang, and it's just fantastic, and it's on our webpage. You really, really should watch that. And that soon after it aired in February, I received a phone call from a man here in Rye who said, my grandfather served at Wood Island, and my great-grandfather served at Wood Island. My great-grandfather's name was George Ricker. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And that is George Ricker's. I don't know why you would have a business card if you're a surfman, but anyway. Rye Beach, right there, look at that. Pretty cool. I mean, that's just, anyway. So we now are talking to this nice man, his name's Chris Ward, about all these pieces coming to the museum. And so that's underway, and it's really, really exciting. This is George Ricker's son-in-law, George Ben Ricker, George Ricker's son-in-law, Clifford Tabbitt. He also was at all these stations. So we've got an incredible amount of information about him. You see that uniform he's wearing? Right there. Chris Ward has the actual uniform here, just down the street in Washington Street. So this is where we go from the building is cool. It's a lot of fun to make friends with the National Guard and build seawalls. But this is what it's really all about, is to make these connections with these actual people whose families are still here, because that's why this museum really is going to rock. This is Mr. Tabbitt's service records. So I mean, literally, where he was and what days and all these details. So really, really special. And there he is goofing around on Rye Beach, which is just great. I throw this on here. You all probably know about this book. It's a whole nother lecture for some other day about bootlegging, rum running, and the late 1920s, early 30s. The life-saving service, the U.S. Coast Guard by that point, one of their big functions in this area was dealing with that. Sort of professional party poopers. No, that's not true. But this book is set in Rye Harbor, so it's pretty cool if you haven't read it. So 2021, we had a ridiculously good year. Mervyn Roberts is underway. Trape Academy, I'm going to talk about for a second here. But we did all this neat stuff. 2022, can we finish this thing? So this is year 7 of this restoration. Can we wrap it up? We shall see. There are crews of men right now. They started last week. They're banging away. We'll see what happens. Over at Trape, and Trape is the high school, the public high school in Kittery, Maine. And we got approached by a foundation, the Robbins de Beaumont Foundation, and said, we love what you're doing at Wood Island. It's really cool. But we don't pay for capital. We don't do what you want. But we do pay for educational things and learning. And what do you got for educational and learning? And I said, we got nothing. We're real busy over here. They said, well, why don't you think about that? So we approached Kittery High School, pitched the idea, basically said, I think it's already paid for. Would you like to do a wooden boat building class? And they said, you bet. So we're building 2 identical boats so the kids can learn to row and then race each other. How much fun, after they built the boats. We also got to pick out which boat they're going to build, and so this is the boat we got to pick out. If you haven't been to Lowell's Boat Shop in Amesbury, Mass., you really owe it to yourself. Oldest wooden boat building shop in the United States of America, right here on the Merrimack. And I jokingly say, for us in Kittery to come to Rye feels like a long way. I understand that from Rye to go to Amesbury seems like a long way, but it's really worth the trip. That boat shop was building boats for the life-saving service. So we partnered with them and brought the head of Lowell's to the Kittery school system to teach the kids how to build the boats. The plan is a boat that was built at Lowell's. So it's really pretty damn cool. You remember that little funny boat? Well, it's pretty close to what we're building with Trape. So that's really neat. There's the beautiful, beautiful facility they have. Gorgeous. There's the guy who runs Lowell's, named Graham McKay. And there's a plan, and they're goofing around, and they're getting ready to show the kids, and here we go. Pretty cool, fun stuff. That was about 2 weeks ago. That was yesterday. And that shows you one is built, one is underway. So that's really neat. And the funders just reached out and said, let's do this again, maybe 2 more years. So we've had 45 kids come through this program already. I am so excited. And Tom Jackson's here. He was kind enough to pick me up at Logan the other night. And we start getting to know each other and chit-chatting. We'll come to find out, Tom's granddaughter took the class. I mean, small world, my God. Anyway, really cool. So anyway, Tom, thank you for lending your granddaughter. I know she's going to be a doctor, I understand that, but she helped build that boat. As I mentioned, this building's really crazy special. Life-saving service, Coast Guard, Navy. Can we turn it into a museum here starting soon? And I throw out a couple more geeky things. This is on our webpage if you really are into it. I mentioned Charles Hand right there, Charles Hand right there, Charles Hand right there. This is an unbelievable resource. We have had a volunteer go to the National Archives in Waltham 3 straight days and research all the service records. They're all there. There are 30-something boxes on Wood Island there. There are 50-something boxes on Wood Island down in College Park, Maryland National Archives. So we have a full database of everybody who was there. So as I mentioned these names, Charles Hand, Ben Ricker. Ben Ricker's right there and there. And so these are each year. Anyway, it's just a really cool thing. We also have a database of all the reps, which is really neat, and we could always use help with that if someone's interested in doing some time. Everyone always asks how you get there, and you all are familiar with Gundalow, but I bring you back, you remember the great vision, the long-term vision. Well, there it is. And that's a big day. That is a big day. I was doing fine. The first time Gundalow came was a whole bunch of school children. I was doing fine until they're leaving, and you know how little girls do this, and they all sort of sing-songy together, sung a, goodbye, Wood Island, and I started crying. That was the end of it. I'm like, Jesus. I mean, I was doing fine. Anyway, this was this fall. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. So we've raised $5.1 million, which is not all cash. The National Guard counts. We think 5.7. I would not swear to that, but my point is it's not that far away. Kittery has not been participating in the funding, which is per our agreement. We really, really didn't want that, and it's worked out really well. Here are some of our partners, Coast Guard. These are all US Navy officers doing public service, coming to help us. And this is just ridiculous. This was this August where one of the men was being promoted, and he asked to be promoted on Wood Island. So this is US Army. And so the general's there, and he is a specialist becoming a sergeant, and they're reading his orders. And I mean, holy moly, way special. So yes, the life-saving service is a thing of the past, I understand that. These soldiers are making it a thing of today. It's really, really special. These are just some ooh and ah pictures. I don't know, they're just great. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Very special place. Coast Guard, more Coast Guard. That's basically what it looks like right this minute, and they are running around. The sheetrock's all in the building. They're just about to install it. I've got an electrician coming on Monday. Good stuff for free. We have a weather station on our webpage if you ever want to know what's going on. We also have live streaming video. Ooh, that's kind of cool. So next time there's a rowdy storm, go to YouTube or go to our webpage, and you'll watch the lighthouse getting clobbered. Or send me a message and I'll move the camera around for you. People do it all the time. People do it all the time. That's the view from the live webcam. Yeah, that's crazy. This is what you see during a storm from our live webcam. And you see that right there? That's a 47-footer Coast Guard vessel, just like I started the presentation with. And I saw that. I was sitting in Florida, by the way. And I saw that, and I'm like, holy smoke. And so I've got the name and number of the commanding officer of the Coast Guard station. And I text him, I said, what are your 47-footers is out there? It's a huge storm. He said, Sam, I'm driving. Can't talk. Can't talk right now. I'm like, holy smoke. Oh, Lord. Yeah, really special place. That's our banker. And please, let's stay in touch. And thank you all. If you haven't, please do give a name and an email. We are judicious about how many emails we send, as in like quarterly. But email is how we really do it. And if you ever want to say hi or you have a thought, we have a contact button on our webpage. Just comes straight to me, so just feel free to use that too. This was our planning board visit, which was a high stress moment. Mother Nature thought that was amusing and gave us just fantastic weather. So that, you know, you'd expect the planning board to ask a lot of scary questions. They didn't ask us. So here we go. Historically significant. No other life-saving stations with a marine railway. Nobody's got an operating surf boat. That's crazy. Certainly not with an electric engine. That's nonsense. Very, very, very few with a wreck pole that you shoot the cannon at. And so what we're going to do is restore this, open it to the public, and we come back to the big message, which is brave men rowing boats, and a few more pictures. This is crazy. I did not know this picture was being taken. I was having some adult beverages with a good friend right there. That is a cool picture. Yeah, that's a cool spot. Wow. Wow. It's all lit at night. It's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, it's really lit at night. Really cool place. Before the pier, before the marine railway.
So you mentioned that people can stay overnight. How many bedrooms are there?
There's really one. And it's well, and look, back up. There's one bathroom.
Okay.
So this funny little building is where the generator lives, and it has a basement with 2 huge diesel tanks in it, and it also has the solar panels. So in the summer, the solar panels run everything, and the diesel and all that is really for the winter operation. That has a public bathroom in it that's handicap accessible. So that's step 1. Step 2, the whole second floor, that's the bathroom, that's sort of the living room, this is the bedroom. And I mean, yeah, one bathroom kind of tells me, even if you had 2 bedrooms, it's going to be tight. So I expect we'll have 2 queen beds in there, so, you know, we'll see how it goes. But we have no restrictions on that, if that's what you're getting at. I mean, we've built some very special benches for the tower. A great-grandson of Charles Hand has appeared, who, come to find out, is on the board at Strawberry Bank. He is a fine furniture maker. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So the great-grandson, the fine furniture maker, how can I help you? I'm like, well, now that you mention it. So he made absolutely gorgeous 2R design benches for the tower, which you'll be able to sleep in. So I'm just saying, we have 1 bedroom, 1 bath. So I would say occupancy maybe 4. Good stuff. Portsmouth Historical Society has this every year, you know what I mean? Big gingerbread contest. Anyway, we won. Good stuff. There's your friend Sam. Thank you all very, very much. That is 1 hour on the nose. I hope that's okay. And should we turn on lights? Should we do some Q&A and all that good stuff? I hope you've been inspired. Yeah.
Can you get outfits like the British Broadcasting System, BBC, and the major networks to pick up on this? It's a fabulous testimonial to spunk, creativity, and when you think of the town of whatever was going to give up on it.
Kittery.
The initial reaction too often.
They're still there. Don't think they're not still there.
Well, this deserves.
Thank you.
Needs a role.
No, thank you. You're very, very kind to say that. As I say, that the New Hampshire Public Television piece was really a win. So that'd be a great teaser if you have the ability to help us reach a larger audience. Yeah. And if I were a producer and always looking for good content, and I saw that, I would say, oh my, there's a story. What was cool about that thing, that New Hampshire Public Television, there are 4 or 5 complicated stories here. You know, the wooden boat is crazy, the high school is crazy, the National Guard is crazy. There's a lot of parts to it. And I took an hour. I mean, it takes a while. They banged it out really nicely in 26 minutes with excellent detail. So I would love nothing more than help doing that. And so please, if you can do that, let's do it.
Well, spectacular.
Thank you so much.
In that New Hampshire Public Television piece, they kayak out there.
They did.
Can that be done?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, there's no problem that you can go on the island?
So the island is a public park. when the day comes and we are in business, we will charge people to come into the museum and likely, land on the dock. I should think for a very special fee, you can go down the Marine Railway. I don't know, we haven't gotten that far. Anyone can come land on the beach, there's no fee for that, and they do.
Can you take a boat?
Oh, yeah, so people have them do it all the time. There are 4 or 5 yacht clubs on the Piscataqua, and Little Harbor, I think it's called, does an annual, 30 boats show up and they have a picnic, and yeah, so it's a beautiful little cove. It's a lovely spot, for sure. Yeah. I can't see running down and handing someone a bill. I don't think that's gonna work. Yeah.
There's some pylons that reach over to
Yes,
the
thank you.
main coast.
Thank you. That
Was there used to be a bridge?
no, it did not, and it's a very common question. The lecture that I said someday we should do is the history of the defense of the Piscataqua River.
Yeah.
That's part of that. That's part of that. So there
Okay.
was, believe it or not, a chain link fence with a link as big as your arm to the bottom of the river. And the river is 60, 70 feet deep. And the portion from Wood Island to the mainland had what we call crib works. And believe it or not, there were numerous ports in the US that had that kind of defense. And after the war, everyone took all their crib works down. Well, Kittery never got around to taking their crib works down, so they're still there. So that's kind of historic and incredible. The fact that Wood Island was occupied by the Navy, who were helping deal with this fence, is unbelievable. But Wood Island itself was part of that fence. Yeah, so they're preventing submarines. This is where we make sure we don't say German submarines, we say Nazi submarines. But anyway, the Nazi submarines offshore, huge minefield, massive, with an incredible cable from York to the Isles of Shoals to Rye that would detect any vessel that was surface or submerged crossing the wire. Got that? So huge cannons on shore with cannonry that was designed to be twice as long range as the largest range German battleships came up. So the anxiety is the Bismarck, literally, would pull up and blow away the Navy Yard. Of the enemy tonnage sunk by submarines in World War II, give or take 3/4 of that tonnage was sunk by submarines built in Portsmouth. So it was very strategic. 4,000 soldiers protecting the entrance, with a whole bunch of Navy guys too. So it was a very big deal. It is worthy of you guys enjoying it. So another day, but the answer is those crib works were holding up parts of the fence, and a local guy in Kittery called me up and he's like, yeah, you know that fence? Oh, yeah. They had this really cool thing called star somethings. Sorry, I'm forgetting. Anyway, hunk of nasty metal with points. So the cable is holding up the fence. The cable itself has these rotating spiky things on it. So if a vessel tries to jump over the fence, it'll rip the bottom of the boat out. And he's like, yeah, I've done a lot of scuba diving. I found one of these star things. I think you might like it for the museum. I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, yeah, it's in my garage. It's out back. Yeah, go take it. It's out back. So I go into his beautiful barn, and there's this ridiculous mass. I should have brought it with me. It's in Kittery. Horrible looking thing. It's being used with a string to hold the mousetrap. So if the mouse tries to get away, anyway. So I should have kept the mousetrap, but anyway. So yeah, people do think that there was a bridge, and there was never a bridge.
Sam, we have a comment from one of our Zoom watchers.
Wonderful.
It says, if you need a trained lifeboatman to teach the kids at Drake how to man and maneuver surf boats, let me know.
Woo, baby. So this is what the networking is all about, and my great pleasure to be with you tonight, because you all have amazing networks. You all will say, I went and saw this crazy guy, and he gave me this cool book. If you didn't get the book, please take one. Little picture books. That's exactly what we're hoping to have happen. Is if we all get together, something good's going to happen, and to have someone offer like that is just a gem. And so I thank you so much, and let's be sure to take them up on it. And the trade kids, none of them know how to row, like none. And I'm gonna say Tom's granddaughter does not know how to row. No, no. So they're all like, yeah, it's nice that we're building a wooden boat. We're definitely not rowing this thing. I'm like, oh, you're definitely rowing this thing. Not only that, when they finish the other one, you're gonna race each other. So they're like, oh my God. So anyway,
Sam, one other question. So you showed the pictures of the boats going into the sea with a ship in distress in the background. How
Yep.
far out would they actually be able to go? How many miles out?
So imagine that you have no radios. Okay, so it's pre-radio. And obviously when radios come in, a lot of this quickly changes. But it's pre-radio. Isles of Shoals has a station. So Isles of Shoals had a Morse code light that they could communicate with Wood Island and Rye Beach and Wallace Sands and Hampton. So they would talk to each other through Isles of Shoals. And they'd say there's some bad stuff going down at Rye. So definitely Wood Island would rally out to get down there by rowboat. So, I mean, forget about it. It's a storm, it's nighttime, we're gonna go for a row? I don't think so. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that in my fancy restored thing with an electric engine. I mean, no way. So I threw up that not good slide of all the words that we're talking about the 1896 storm. Well, you know, I don't know how they learned it, but you know, the boys from Rye need to go down to Hampton. It's just like the firemen in the back. If you get the signal, the call that Hampton needs your help, you're going. That's how it is. So they went 2 hours in a blizzard over land to get there. So crazy stuff. And I'm here to tell you, this is tip of the iceberg, y'all. If you enjoy scavenger hunts and you know the fun of research, we're just scratching the surface. There's more and more of these incredible stories. There's a wreck that comes to mind just off Jerry's Point before Wood Island was built. Ship sinks, Jerry's Point goes out to deal with it. There's a lot of chaos, and they lose somebody. One of the sailors disappears. He shows up a couple days later. He lived in Kittery. He shows up a couple days later at his doorstep. He has floated from the Piscataqua to York Beach on a piece of the leftover ship. And it's wintertime. I mean, it's madness. And I don't know why, but he walked home. So he comes rolling up, knocks on the door 2 days later. Yeah, I had a really bad experience. You know, what's for dinner? I mean, so, but my point is, you know, I learned about that story from the Newcastle Historical Society. So they had that. And but another crazy thing happened just 2 weeks ago. I got a call from a woman, Carol White. I don't know if you know her. She's a leading historian in Newcastle. And Carol White, so she understands this whole crazy story. She's involved, she's helping. She was one of the people that worked on the database of wrecks, you know, super involved. She's like, Sam, I think I got the faking box for Wood Island. Now, first of all, that's code. When you shoot the cannon into the wreck with the projectile and the line is very tricky, because if you shoot something and the line gets tangled, bad things are going to happen to everybody involved. So there's a special pattern, I'm not making this up, where the line is laid down in a box. So it's got sort of spindles. And you lay it in the box, and that's all good. And you take this whole thing to the rack. It's in your boat, so that if you get there and you can't deal with it by boat, you pull out your cannon. The rope is right there in a box. And you get to the nearest beach, and you flip the box over, so the spindles stay in the box. Now you've got a pile of rope ready to go. She calls up and says, I think I've got, it's called a faking box, because laying line like that is faking. I don't know why, but that's what it is. And she says, yeah, I think I've got the faking box for Wood Island. I'm like, what are you talking about? So she's like, you gotta come see this thing. Well, her relative, Amazine, is that a familiar name to you all? I knew it would be. So many Amazines in Newcastle. Mr. Amazine was a surfman at Jerry's Point. For sure, I don't think Wood Island, Jerry's Point. It was in the box. So there's this box. Well, how do you know where it came from? I keep telling you, Charles Hand is this big part of this story. It's got his name in it. So what they were doing was they were shooting the cannon at Wood Island and taking an estimate, I don't know how, of how long the shot was. So it's 1,750 feet. On this date, signed Charles Hand in his handwriting. I'm like, oh! So I'm gonna like, can I put that in the car? Because I'm taking it home. So it's sitting in my living room right now. I don't know what to do with it. We definitely need to professionally photograph to make photos of the writing inside. Yeah,
I believe Winslow Homer has a famous painting
he does.
of
He
a
does.
woman on
He
a
does.
lifeline.
He's got a couple. He was in England, and it's 1890 and a couple. I'm not going to get that right. He's in England. What we all have done here in the United States is really copy England in the concept of lifesaver. So they really wrote the book, figured out the boats, figured out the whole thing, and the canonry and all that. And Mr. Lau was an American, but he was copying English canonry. Homer, was visiting a friend in England, saw a wreck and saw the response to the wreck and was blown away. And 3 years later, he painted that. He painted a painting of that wreck, and then 3 years later, he painted that painting. And it's there's a fantastic, massive exhibit starting just now at the Metropolitan in New York. So I got to go down and see that painting in June. Yeah.
What advice would you give us to try to preserve the pulpit rock tower?
No, I've enjoyed following that, and it's, if I'm not mistaken, a World War II vintage, because I really don't know anything about it. World War II, observation for submarines and offshore and all that. There's one in Fort Foster, if you don't know. There's one to look at. The treatment of that debate in the Portsmouth Herald was helpful to me. So it showed me that the editorial board of Portsmouth Herald might actually be interested in Wood Island, and they certainly have been. But I actually, so to speak, used that story and reached out to them and said, hey, you guys are writing about pulpit, maybe you'd write about Wood Island. I mean, my sense is the town owns it, is that right? No, the town does not own it?
No, it's the Friends of the Tower, it's a private group.
So it's private, okay.
Private.
Well, that's a damn good start. And are you trying to raise money and do all that?
We have to figure out, we have to have a mission.
Ah, well, I mean, that's the fun part, No, of course I'd be happy to talk to you, of course. And we can see it from Wood Island, by the way. So, yeah, you could charge people to go and look at Wood Island, that would work, yeah. Great. Any other questions, boys and girls? Yep.
Are the boats and kids building going to have the capacity to be electric?
We're not going to do that. Those boats are small. They're 19 footers. They are 6-oared 3-man boats. So really one person can row that if they had to. So they're fully functional. The issue with the Mervyn Roberts is it's 26 feet, it's 3,000 pounds, it's a beast. So you got to make some friends to row that thing. And as I say, I threw out the vocabulary word of en banc, meaning sitting next to each other. So you gotta make friends in even numbered pairs. You need it. I think you could probably move the Mervyn Roberts with 4. Pardon? For sure. So there are 8 oarsmen and a coxswain. So with a crazy long steering oar, but we're not doing that. But anyway, the Mervyn Roberts needs a power source for sure. And the problem with it, when it came out of service, somebody put a great big atomic 4 diesel right in the middle of the thing, which is great. And they never rode it again. So that's great, but we want to row it. So we pulled the diesel out. If anyone's looking for a slightly used atomic 4 diesel engine, we have one available. To put an engine back in means you're going to knock out the ability to row. Well, magical upon magical, don't ask me how or why, but the idea of electric maritime is really just starting. And so what's nice about that is it comes in little pieces and parts. So the engine itself is only like this big. And so that gets tucked underneath one of the bench seats. And then the batteries are they're like this. We got 3 of them, lithium ion. They're heavy, they're 120 pounds, but they go under a bench seat. And then there's a fancy charger with that. All you gotta do is connect them with wires. So it's not like a diesel. And it's silent. And I think it's nuts that we're gonna charge the batteries off the solar, off grid. That's nuts. So we're very excited about bragging about that publicly. And you all, no one's asked about human waste on this island, which is a whole cool subject of its own. But the Maine DEP helped us. And so it was 2016, we did this nice video of everything that had happened, and it looked great. And I said, my God, think of all these partners we have. why don't we just do a little thingy at the end and thank each partner individually? It makes it look like we did this whole movie just for them. And so we did it 14 times with different partners, and we sent the video to the Maine DEP, naming everybody who helped us, and the permitting was wicked. And they were very professional. We got along great with those folks. Sent it along. You know, there's this thing called the internet. I'm here to tell you it's not a fad. And you can find the DEP of Maine's head guy and the number 2 and the number 3. So we basically just made a list of whatever, 10 or 15 of them, and the staff people that worked with us, and sent them the movie. And the phone rings soon thereafter, and it's the commissioner of Maine DEP, Mr. Reed, please. I'm like, oh, goodness. And he says, Mr. Reed, we've received your email with the video. It's very fine, very fine. I want you to know, sir, that we are a regulatory agency. And I'm like, this is not okay. I said, sir, no one ever thanks us for anything. What can we do to help you? And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you asked. We cannot figure out human waste at all. And he's like, oh, we just approved this thing, it'll be perfect for you. It's an on-site wastewater treatment plant. It's about $25,000. It's wonderful, and it's it will stay in the building. So we have a huge historic cistern there, 5,000-gallon cistern. So we'll catch rainwater. Those go to the toilets. 70-something% of all our water usage will be the toilets, the 2 toilets. Flush through the system, goes back in the system, never leaves the building. So, and Maine DEP is really happy about it because they want to brag about it. So we plan, when we build that thing, and I'm desperate to build it this summer, it's all visible, so signage and colors. So when you take a school tour, you can say, you see, that's that. So yeah, very sustainable building, very cool. Well, I mean, it's wonderful. I've had a wonderful adventure. Thank you all for having me. And